What if I told you that Charles Leclerc's fastest lap in the second week of testing in Bahrain was not what really shocked Lewis Hamilton, but what Nico Rosberg saw behind that 1 minute and 31.9 seconds? Because we are not just talking about a time attack with soft tires at dusk. We are talking about a brutal message within Ferrari, a psychological blow, an internal declaration of hierarchy. But also, and here is the truly disturbing thing about the beginning of something much more dangerous, the silent connection between Hamilton and SF-26. Rosberg analyzed it with a magnifying glass. He didn't stay on the stopwatch. He observed the body language, the cleanliness of the steering wheel, the consistency in long runs. And what he detected in the second week of Bahrain could completely change the narrative before the first Grand Prix. Was it Leclerc who issued the definitive warning? Or is Hamilton who is preparing the most devastating response? The second week of testing in Bahrain did not start with fireworks. It started with data, with long runs, with millimeter adjustments, with Ferrari working in silence while the paddock tried to decipher if what was seen in the first week was real or just strategic smoke. But as the days progressed on the Sakhir track, a pattern began to emerge that Nico Rosberg was quick to point out. The SF-26 wasn't just fast, it was coherent. Charles Leclerc was the first to show it forcefully. His adaptation to the car seemed natural, almost immediate. In the second week, he could already be seen attacking the fast corners with total confidence in the front axle. The Ferrari turned with precision, without that slight initial hesitation that had punished the Scuderia in previous seasons. And that is not a minor detail. When a driver can brake late, release the pedal and trust that the nose will obey without understeer, time appears on its own. The 1 minute and 31.9 seconds lap was not an improvisation. It was the culmination of a very clear program. C5 tires, more representative track conditions in the late afternoon, optimized fuel load for qualifying simulation, and a car that was already within the balance window that favors Leclerc's aggressive style. Sector by sector, the Monegasque built a clean lap, without overdriving, without dramatic corrections. And that's where Rosberg starts to look beyond the stopwatch. Because the impact was not only external, it was internal. On the other side of the pit was Lewis Hamilton. And although publicly the Briton remained calm, within the team the signal was clear. Leclerc was ready from now on. I was in leader mode. I was sending a direct message. But this is where the analysis becomes interesting. While Leclerc executed the visible coup, Hamilton was building something less spectacular, but strategically deeper. In the long runs of that second week, we began to see a much more stable steering wheel in his hands. Fewer micro-corrections. Less struggle in support transition. The SF-26 did not seem to surprise him at the entrance or dislodge him at the exit. And for someone like Rosberg, who knows perfectly well what Hamilton looks like when he's not yet comfortable and what he looks like when he starts to be, that difference is huge. Hamilton did not go looking for the test starter. I didn't need to do it. I was in the phase of fine understanding of the car, how the rear axle responds under deep braking, how much the front axle can load without compromising stability, how it behaves in stints of more than 10 laps. That silent construction is dangerous because when Hamilton reaches that total connection, his rhythm stops being intermittent and becomes relentless. What the second week of Bahrain reveals is a fascinating dynamic within Ferrari. Leclerc is at his most mature as a driver. High confidence, controlled aggression, absolute knowledge of the team's DNA. But Hamilton, although shocked by the fast lap, did not react with anxiety. He reacted methodically. And that changes the reading of everything. Because if the SF-26 already allows Leclerc to squeeze it into a lap, and at the same time offers the stability necessary for Hamilton to build consistent pace in the race, Ferrari does not have a capricious car. It has a solid foundation. And that basis is what worries Rosberg the most. Bahrain's second week, then, was not simply the scene of an eye-catching fastest lap. It was the moment when it began to become clear that Ferrari could have solved one of its biggest historical problems. The inconsistency between qualifying pace and race pace. And when a team eliminates that contradiction, it stops being a promise and starts being a real threat. Because when Rosberg analyzes what happened in Sakhir, he doesn't stop at 1 minute and 31.9 seconds. What catches your attention is the pattern. And in Formula One, when there is a pattern, there is a trend. And when there is a trend, there is a threat. During the second week, Ferrari did not work like a team that needs to find miracles. They worked as a team that is polishing a solid foundation. On long runs, the SF-26 showed controlled degradation, especially in more representative racing conditions. That means the car doesn't rely exclusively on a narrow temperature window or a fragile balance that disappears when the tank fills. And this is where Hamilton begins to enter the scene in a more worrying way for his rivals. In the telemetry data, and this is what Rosberg emphasizes, something is observed that for the casual viewer may go unnoticed: the cleanliness of the track. Hamilton's steering wheel moves less in the long stint. There are fewer corrections in the middle phase of the curve. The car does not seem to bite you when leaving support or require constant micro-adjustments. This indicates that the rear axle is offering real stability under load. Why is that so important? Because Hamilton is a driver who needs confidence at the back to unleash his style. When you feel that the car is not going to betray you in the transition from braking to support, you can delay braking, modulate the pedal with millimeter precision, and maintain high minimum speed without compromising output. If the SF-26 is giving it that bass in the second week of testing, that means we have not yet seen its real ceiling. While Leclerc was already running practically final qualifying laps, Hamilton was in the structural construction phase, adjusting balance, testing suspension settings, exploring limits without looking for headlines. And that, strategically, is smart. Rosberg understands it because he has been there. He knows what Hamilton looks like when he's still adjusting, and what he looks like when he starts molding the car in his image. And in Bahrain, what he saw was not frustration. It was a process. And here the real internal conflict appears. Leclerc arrives at the start of the season at his strongest point mentally. It's your team. It's your environment. It is the car that has understood since its genesis. But now he shares a box with someone who doesn't need to be the fastest in February to be the most dangerous in April. The second week leaves a very clear picture. Ferrari has two different paths to maximum performance. Leclerc's is explosive, immediate, aggressive. If the car is in the window, he squeezes it without hesitation. Hamilton's is progressive, surgical, cumulative. If the base is stable, he turns it into devastating consistency. And in the race simulations, we begin to see something even more disturbing. The drop in times is not abrupt. There are no unexpected degradation spikes. That means the SF-26 can sustain pace under thermal pressure, something Ferrari has historically struggled with. Rosberg does not openly say that Hamilton will surpass Leclerc. What it suggests is deeper. When a car stops being unpredictable and becomes docile at the limit, Hamilton enters its most lethal zone. Leclerc's fast lap shocked. Yes. But what really shocked Hamilton was not the weather, but the confirmation that the car has real potential. And when a 7-time champion detects that the weapon is competitive, his mentality changes. It is no longer in learning mode. It is in construction mode. The second week of Bahrain then did not show us who the leader of Ferrari is. It showed us that Ferrari could have two leaders in different phases of maturation within the same project. And that generates an internal competitive tension that can raise the level of the team, or fracture it if it is not managed well. Rosberg knows it, and that is why its reading is not superficial. It's not about who was faster in the tests. It's about who is in the best position to turn that potential into real points when the first race rolls around. The second week of testing in Bahrain did not crown anyone, but he did leave something much more important. A warning. And the warning is not just for Red Bull. It's not just for Mercedes. It is even internal within Ferrari's own box. Because what Nico Rosberg detects after that fast lap by Leclerc is not a simple difference in pace. It is the birth of a healthy competitive tension, but dangerous if not managed intelligently. Ferrari leaves Bahrain with something it didn't have in recent years: technical coherence. The SF-26 doesn't look like an extreme car that shines one day and disappears the next. It doesn't seem to depend on a tiny temperature window. It doesn't seem to punish you when you attack the limit. And when a car eliminates these structural defects, the championship stops being an illusion and begins to be a real mathematical possibility. Now Leclerc has made it clear that he is ready from the first race. The fastest lap was a direct message: this car can be on pole. But the real earthquake could come if Hamilton turns that stable base into a platform of regularity. And in Bahrain, the second week showed that Hamilton is already in the phase of progressive connection with the SF-26. You don't need to be the fastest in February. You need the car to be predictable in April. And if that condition is met, your yield curve can grow exponentially. Rosberg understands this perfectly because he experienced something similar. When Hamilton enters that mental zone where he stops questioning the car and starts blindly trusting it, his level of precision increases. Energy management improves. Strategic reading is refined. The psychological pressure on his partner grows. And that brings us to the most interesting scenario. Ferrari could be entering the season with two real threats to the title, but in different phases. Leclerc, immediate, explosive, ready to attack from the first classification. Hamilton, Progressive, methodical, building a more dangerous version as the calendar progresses. Bahrain's second week did not resolve who is the leader. What he did was something more complex. Balance the board. If Leclerc maintains the lead at one lap, he can mark territory from Saturday. If Hamilton consolidates his race pace, he can quietly start cutting back each Sunday. And when both levels overlap, Ferrari becomes a systemic problem for the rest of the grid. Rosberg does not talk about emotional impact per spectacle. Talk about structural impact. Because what was seen in Bahrain was not a nervous Ferrari. It was a solid Ferrari. And when a team with that foundation has one driver at his best and another building his maximum connection, the competitive ceiling rises dangerously. So the question that week 2 leaves is not who was faster. Bahrain did not crown anyone. But he did leave a clear warning. Ferrari is no longer looking for answers. It is beginning to impose questions. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.